Really excited to have everyone come introduce themselves. So Elena, if you wouldn't mind joining us back on stage and our panel, feel free to start sharing your cameras.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is our closing keynote. So also a huge thank you to the audience for joining us. I'm thrilled to be here with these exceptional panelists. And let's just go around and do a quick introduction. And at Women Who Code, we have this sort of tradition of sharing a little something about yourself. So today's question of the day, in addition to who you are, as if you had the afternoon off, what would you do? Let's see. Diane, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. So my name is Diane Yu. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Better. Better is a fast-growing digital mortgage company aiming to change how people become homeowners. We want to make it so easy, and we want to make sure that everybody who look for a home, they can find a home, and then they can get mortgage, and they can get it at the best rate possible. So I currently live in New York. As a matter of fact, throughout the pandemic, I stayed in New York, right by Columbus Circle. And I have a daughter, and she's 9 years old. If I have ever had some time off, I want to spend time with her. That's the best time I want to spend. So happy. So that's me.
Brea, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thanks for having me and for hosting this really important discussion. I am Brea Starmer. I'm the founder of Lions and Tigers, which is a bit of a courage brand. We're an agency that thinks about the future of work and inclusion in our workplaces. So we actually build bridges and provide access to people through part-time and flexible work. And I'm the mother of 3 kids. I've got a 5.5-year-old boy, a 2.5-year-old boy, and a 6-month-old girl. So I just came back from maternity leave. And so I suppose if I was to take the afternoon, I'd probably opt for a nap. But knowing that those kids are all awake, we would probably be playing on the beach.
Samaria?
Hello. Excited to be here. My name is Samir. I am the Director of People and Inclusion here at Women Who Code. I am so excited to join this panel. I think this conversation is extremely important. If I had the afternoon off, I'm hopping on a plane. I have no children, so I'm hopping on a plane and going to a beach as far as I can go within the afternoon.
So I'll go. I'm Alaina Percival, CEO and co-founder of Women Who Code. We are the largest and most active community of technical women in the world. You're all here, so you've heard of us. And I'm thrilled to be celebrating 10 years of Women Who Code. I think that you've all taken things that I would love to be doing in my afternoon. So since it's a Friday afternoon, I would say I would love to be wine tasting. That would be a really exceptional thing that I got to do. And I'm a mother of a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So that's not a very realistic goal for this afternoon. Okay, so all 3 of you have had a huge impact and have really come a long way in your careers. You've gone different routes. I'd love to just take a moment to get to know you and hear a little bit about your journeys. Let's see, Brea, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I started in tech right out of college. I went to work at Microsoft as a full-time employee as my first job. And I spent about 4 or 5 years there building partner channel marketing programs, but felt very called towards entrepreneurship. And so left there against the advice of most of my mentors to go and be employee number 1 at a small agency. And did every job there. I mean, ran payroll, was on irs.gov trying to figure out how taxes worked. I mean, really cut my teeth on learning how to build a business from scratch. So I took that company from 0 to 120 employees over 4 years, and realized that I had this really deep passion for community building. I wanted to see it in a couple of different business models. So I went to a digital marketing agency to go see what that model felt like, how you sold it, how you serviced it, how you bring talent through. I went to a very large startup, a very well-funded startup in the Seattle area. I was employee 450. So it's a big old startup. And that's where my career planning ended, because 10 months into my job there, 7 months pregnant, I was let go. I was laid off from that startup as part of a reduction in force and re-strategization. So my career planning really was halted, and out on the market trying to find a job was pretty scary. And I faced a lot of discrimination. And I was told that mothers and women are not recognized and rewarded for our work in society. And so I was able to become a consultant. That's like all. I was like, well, will you at least hire me to do some consulting for you? And so that was the job that I made for myself. I was very lucky to be able to do that. And so I started piecing together these part-time projects and went off, and I had my first son and came back from that kind of leave and realized how awesome of a job this was to be able to work. I wanted to work 25 hours, and I just couldn't find high impact roles that let me do that. And that felt like such a missing part of the market, because I had a lot of friends, a lot of people I knew that were really gifted, but just needed a little flexibility. So I built Lions and Tigers to bridge that gap. And so we've been working hard for about 3 years. We're a bootstrap company, and we've primarily placed in tech. So we've had a lot of tech sponsorships, especially where we know women are dropping out of course in really record numbers. There's a lot of focus on inclusion. So we've come in as a solution for that. So it's been a beautiful ride to this point. It feels like I've used all of my jobs in the job that I'm in now. And now the agency that we're about to, look at cresting over 100 folks now working for us, anywhere from 2 hours a week to a full time on a schedule that they need. So that's the mission that we're on.
That's so inspiring how you're carving that out and creating that space for others as well. Let's see, Samaria, would you like to go next?
Definitely. So I am on an HR path. I have been in the HR realm for a little over 10 years now. So I actually started my career out in retail. Retail is where I started working in the store, folding clothes. And so as I continued my journey, I realized that I had just such a passion for people. And I moved into corporate retail and then moved into staffing. And I started at the beginning of the employment cycle in a recruiter role, really impacting people's lives, because when you think about recruiters, they typically are selling you on your next career opportunity. So I worked in staffing for a tech company. And so I've worked with all different types of engineers in different tracks. So it was an amazing experience, but I realized I wanted to be a little more in healthcare. So I spent the last few years in healthcare, and then I found my way back to tech. So that is my career journey. I'm still on it. I'm excited to continue to move up in HR and really focus on, I want to continue to make an impact and let women know that we are in this space for a reason, and we do have something to say and do.
Diane?
Oh, thank you. So when I was asked whether I want to come and speak at Women Who Code panel, I was like, of course, I'm super excited, because I always view myself as a woman who code. I started my career as an entry-level software engineer. At this point, about 24 years ago. My first career, I was working at DoubleClick. And then I, basically stayed on the tech track as long as possible over there. And then basically started from coder and all the way to refactor the capabilities, rebuilding the system and re-architecturing their platform. I worked there for 9 years, and I rose up to be their engineering, to run their engineering team as part of the exec team, and we sold to Google. Instead of staying at Google, become an engineering leader, I chose to, leave and co-found my own company. The company name is Freewheel. As a co-founder of Freewheel and the CTO, I built a team and then built an ad tech platform for premium TV and video, from scratch. And we're supporting 70 to 75% of the global media conglomerate. Many of those headquartered in New York. A lot of brand name companies. We never anticipated and expected as a startup we'll just be able to do. Because of our capabilities, and those companies chose to use a Freewheel technology platform. And, basically versus Google, a free version. So we're so proud because, we're actually charging our, customer money. They would rather stay with us because of capability. The company I built was the largest development center in China. So since day one, we have this global engineering organization with a global customer list. So it's actually really a reflection of today's pandemic situation. Everybody working global, in all different places and remotely. And we, as a startup, since day one, and which doesn't happen in many of the, Silicon Valley funded startup, basically working, in a distributed global team. About 7 years in, that's 2014, we sold to Comcast. And I stayed at Comcast for another 7 years and helped them to acquire company and rebuild teams. So I stayed on as a CTO of their advanced advertising group, acquired and merged about 5 companies and tech platforms together during my 7 years. And then in January of this year, I joined Better. I joined Better because I see Better as a unique opportunity to outpace everything I have done in the past. Better is on a mission to make home ownership simpler, faster, and most importantly, more available, accessible for all Americans. Yeah. It's a company, fast-growing company with such a noble cause, and also pair with a large and growing team of passionate individuals relentlessly and want to remove all the cost and inconvenience, make it so easy, to own a home. So when I ran into the CEO and the founder, Vishal, I was like, yes, this is my next step. I want to do that. I want to help to make that happen. So that was the reason I joined. And then, as every step along the way in my career, I remember when I decided to leave Google with a sure job, as a leader, my mentor at the time saying, Diane, you're crazy. You're golden handcuffed, right? And I broke the golden handcuff. I left the money on the table and started my own company. And when Comcast acquired Freewheel and, basically my prior colleague still at Google, and they're saying, yes, Diane, you made the right choice. So now, basically at Comcast, I decided to leave Comcast and join Better. And then my friends over there are also saying that, Diane, you're crazy. Why would you do that? But I want to do because I see a different, unique opportunity with Better. And I want to make that happen. I want to make my capability, using my capability as a woman who code, and to develop and then rebuild and build the capability to help another company scale up. Yeah. So that's me.
Yeah, I think something that's really innovative about the path that you've taken is that every industry is becoming a technology industry. And so, we think of, the traditional tech, but mortgage, finance, healthcare, all of these industries, construction, shipping, they're all going through this technology and digital transformation. And I think that's a really interesting path that people have the opportunity to take and shape these traditional industries. So I'd love to just shift for a minute and talk about where we are today in the world. So women have for a long time been dropping out of the tech industry at a rate of about 50% at that 35-year mark. But we're continuing to see that, and we're actually seeing an acceleration. I'd just love to throw it out to you and say, what's happening? And, have you seen or experienced this? I'll put it out there. Any one of you can jump in.
I'd love to jump on this question because, yes, I see this a lot. I just had a conversation last week with a woman. She was a senior leader at a very large tech firm, and she had just put in her notice, and she was talking to me about transitioning to freelance work and what that journey looked like. And we get those calls all the time. And although we're happy to help people go down that path, it's a symptom of the sort of state of the world, which is that, COVID has brought a tremendous amount of stress and pressure, especially to women. I mean, if any of you follow jobs reports, you might have seen, I think December was the month that shocked us all, because we lost 140,000 jobs, and all of them were women in the United States. And it was like a record scratch moment of like, what is happening here? And now we do see some relief coming with schools and vaccines. And so I think we're all starting to open our hearts a little bit to hybrid work. But absolutely, I mean, I think pre-pandemic, we saw, estimates of nearly 50% of the workforce interested in going freelance, interested in entering into the gig economy, at the same time where brands and organizations aren't thinking about gig worker strategies as diversity and inclusion strategies. Those things didn't come together. Now, with the way that mental health is happening, with the way that space and real estate is happening, we have such an opportunity to converge these trends in a way that's really advantageous to both workers and bottom line. And that opportunity really wasn't open to us before. So I think you'll see certainly that HR is going to drive many business strategies that we hadn't possibly ever thought of before. The CTO and the CHRO are incredibly important roles in tomorrow's workplace.
Yeah. Anybody else have? Oh, jump in.
Yeah, I would definitely have to just piggyback off of that, seeing that trend in the HR world, this new world of working, reimagining what the work day looks like, working from home, and really impacting, like you said, the bottom line. So all around, there is going to be a tremendous impact on what our day-to-day looks like. And I think for women dropping out in December, they're going to start coming back to work, but it has to be on a flexible and a more platform that is able for women to be able to, take care of children, be at home, take care of home, and see what that looks like. It's going to be a lot of communication. And then the key part to this for me is the representation. Like, can I really see myself in a role? Looking at the leadership team, does it look like me? Is there more people that are represented on the chief leadership in these chief roles? What will it look like? What is this new reimagining the workspace? What does it look like for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, resonate very well with me. As a woman who code, when I started 24 years ago, there wasn't that many like women, in the technology field. I was used to the situation where, I'm always this little girl, this one girl, in the corner. I used to the situation where, basically I just like think and look and speak very differently compared to others. I always feel like, okay, is that normal? That's not normal. And that's why it's actually resonates so much to my heart. For every team I build, I want to make sure that there are, the right number of the representation of women at, all levels of the organization. I'm a big believer of 30%. So at any level, it has to be at least 30% of women. In order for the rest of the women to feel like they're supportive of each other, they feel the support. They don't have to be the outlier. I used to not think that way, to be honest. Now let me share a personal story. When I started, before I had Maggie, my daughter, she made me a better person. My colleague used to say that. When I started, I used to think that providing equal opportunity is the best you can do. What else are you asking for? And then when I had Maggie, she's when I remember when she was like 3 and 4 years old, she really loved to playing balls. So she loves soccer, just because it's wrong, it's really fun. So when the soccer practice started to open up for her age, and I got her a session, she was super, super excited. So she decided to wear her best dress. It's a pink princess dress. to go to the soccer field. I remember to this day so vividly, and she ran toward the soccer field. The moment she reached there, she stopped because everyone else on the soccer field, they're all wearing shorts, dark shorts, and the boys, they're chasing a ball. So she stopped right there for 10 seconds. I feels like a lifetime. She turned around and with, tear in her eyes and saying, "Mom, let's go home." So she didn't go to the soccer practice because she feels like they're so different. Others don't look like her, and she doesn't feel like she belongs. And she decided to give up on soccer. And I don't want any women in the field, any woman in technology, to have to feel like that. So that's why I feel so strongly at every level, we have to have 30%, at least 30%, so that women don't feel like, they have to be different. And they can be the same, and they can have their voice and opinion heard. My daughter, like me, being a better person.
I think that's such a moving story, and it really resonates with me in the broader sense of reminding you that you do belong. It seems like such a small thing, but it's actually critical whenever you're coming up to a moment where things are just a little bit challenging. Feeling as though you belong, having that sense of place, seeing that opportunity for yourself is so critical. And that's the space that Women Who Code is focused on, because we want, when your daughter and Brea's children, everyone else's nieces, nephews, friends of kids make it to this industry, that this industry is better, because we need to make sure that women are not only represented, not only moving into the industry, but that they are being represented at that 30% plus that you've emphasized, and diverse women, and seeing that take place around the world globally. So at this time, we know that there's a lot of opportunity for things to get better. We can see and hear and experience things not always being built to be inclusive. What are the stakes? Why should we be moving forward right now?
I can start.
Yeah.
So the stake is super high because of pandemic. Basically all the moms, the fact that to this day the society also still rely on most of the women to pick up most of the basic housework. And then also when you are a mom and you have to spend more time to take care of the kids. So the pandemic actually forced a situation where a lot of women drop out of the work. And we know it's so hard for them to come back in, because once you have a gap, it's very hard for you to come back in. And I think many of the organizations have to realize that this is a moment that if we can help them coming back, if we can have all the, basically the right mentality, the right setup at the workspace, that you can be flexible. And when you have to pick up your kids, and basically the time, allow you the flexible time to do that. And you can work from a different location. You don't have to be in the office, basically like a 9 to 5. And that will allow them, open the room for them to come back in. That'll be so critical because, the whole situation wipe out the progress we've done in the past 15 years. Now we're actually starting from the ground zero again. I feel like all the organization has basically have the obligation to make that happen, especially for people in the leadership team, in the leadership position can actually make that influence, can actually change the culture to allow that, and everybody has to realize that. And this is a big task, but we have to make that happen, because otherwise our workspace will just be, basically filled with a non-diverse group. And people think in one way doesn't mean they're all good, doesn't mean they're right? We have to make sure that, basically it's beneficial to the organization that they pick up the responsibility too.
I have a pretty quick answer here. I think it just really is impacting the future. Our future children, our future nieces and nephews, and everyone you mentioned before, Elena, is just really impacting our future. So what we do right now is impacting the generations to come. So we want to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward and setting them up for the best success. And I know, like, looking at my nieces and nephews and watching them watch their mothers, they're looking, they're wondering what they're doing, how they're impacting the society. So we just want to make sure that what we do now really sets us up for the best in the future.
I would simply say $28 trillion. That's the global economic impact if women participated in the labor force at the same amount that men do. And that's, of course, assuming that all women want to participate in the labor force, which not everyone does. Choice. But boy, there's a lot of opportunity on the table for us to activate women in the way that makes them seen and heard in a safe environment, so that their work is honored. And I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, I love that you brought that forward, because there's a real important economic impact when we participate, when everybody has the opportunity to participate if they choose to. And during our opening keynote, I actually shared just, if Women Who Code reached our addressable market, which is a little over 6 million women technologists around the world, we would actually have a $22 billion annual market impact. And so I'm very proud to say that our current market impact is about $1 billion a year. And putting that out there, that in investing in yourself, being here today, it's going to help you and your family, but that we have the power to collectively add $22 billion annually to the wealth generation for women globally is just something incredible and something actually obtainable. So I love that you brought that forward. And that kind of brings me to just thinking forward a little bit. So what are some effective ways that we could build more inclusive environments and teams to welcome diverse women back to the workforce, or just preventing them from leaving in the first place?
I'll jump in here, Elena. I've read a bunch of studies. Our team has done a lot of research on this topic, and it all boils down to one concept, which is flexibility. And if our workplaces had policies and programs that allowed for flexibility, that looks like split shifts, that looks like remote and hybrid work, that looks like part-time work and job shares, that looks like relieving people of then tracking their time and instead tracking their impact. I mean, these are revolutionary ideas. But if these policies were actually cemented in the ways that the key results of our businesses were measured, as opposed to time, we could really start to open up these new kinds of working. My firm is doing this simply as a defense mechanism because other people aren't. I would love if this wasn't a need in the market. If our clients were able to employ these strategies in their own right, and we consult on that topic too, but we're building these bridges simply to compensate for the fact that these bridges don't exist already. But certainly flexibility policies make a tremendous difference, not just for caretakers, which is the primary folks that we advocate for, but for the BIPOC community, but for lots of other kinds of folks who are underrepresented in today's workforce that seek flexibility as a main access point to be able to join in a way that allows them either ability or location dependent to break through some of those barriers that exist today.
Agree.
And I think that directly goes back to, people first. At Women Who Code, we strive to be people first. And so putting in those policies for the flexibility, I think directly ties to us being people first and really thinking about the person and what they need to be successful in their role. So I think that is a concept that has to go global. We have to be able to really think about the person behind the job, and we all have personal lives. So that is a big piece to being able to work, be flexible, be understanding, empathetic. Like, all of those concepts have to be a part of the daily work life for us to be successful.
Yeah. One of the things that some of my advisors have really hammered into me is that business practices have been built by uninclusive leadership, and those standards and all of those things, the number of hours that we work, the days that we're working, all of this actually are things that can be completely changed and completely disrupted. And as we've gone through this, forced radical change, and we are on the horizon of a fourth industrial revolution, what are some of those things that we can and have to change, and what can we as leaders who are thinking about inclusion be pushing industry to do and accept as the new standards that will be more inclusive and will drive some of that change. And to me, conversations like this, and I'd love to hear also from the audience, if you have ideas, throw them into the chat. What do you think should be entirely different about the industry, about the way of work? None of it is sacred. In this reimagining space, we could actually change it all. So I guess I'll put forward something more specific. What do you think some of the social and cultural changes, reimagine some social and cultural standards that you think would really create a space for the future of work?
I have a lot of topics. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but one thing that specifically, I'm guessing that most of the panelists on this call would say is that someone has provided you access at some point. And that's been a really big awakening for me in this founder role that I'm in, because we have been lifted up by people, by especially women, are missionaries with us to change the system that we're in. And that, I didn't expect that. Like, I sort of just thought we would be doing this on our own. But this concept, especially, here in Women Who Code, a community like this that is so special because of the kind of access that you can give and offer, even if you don't think that you sit in a position of privilege, you do. So the idea that you can invite someone else into this journey with you, it's actually transformational. In the last 3 years, I've given $10 million in economic opportunity to women and people in our community because of the access that was granted to us. I never thought we'd be able to do that. And so I guess I would put it back to the group to say, like, where do you sit? What can you do in the seat that you're in? What rooms are you in that others aren't in? What boards are you on? What meetings are you in where you can start asking these questions? And it's scary to do because it puts you in a position of discomfort. It might change the power dynamic of where you sit. But that's the work that roles that we currently possess.
Great. So I think I realized that you actually make sure that all different level has to have certain percentage, of the representation, not just for women, and in many ways, expanded that into, basically a diverse group, right? And people from different background. If you think about it, they really need to have someone else and also feel like advocating for them. They're not out there alone, advocating for themselves and lonely, advocating for themselves. If we truly believe that, and we're in the position to make the change and to influence the decision, And then each and every one of us will make that advocating, not be shy about it, but actually be up in the front and promote and advocate. And the world gonna change, and it change bit by bit, right? And basically you open up, you look around saying, hey, you know what, for any room, for any teams, and I look, if there isn't enough women, as an example, I start to ask numbers. Why? Right, and then that's basically when I started. Started at Better, I started to make that my, basically continue my personal journey, and I want to make sure that we do hiring for, inclusive, basically including all the diverse groups. And then once you start to talk about that, and then more and more people say, yeah, I agree, I follow, and then and then never stop, never settle until you reach that, and measure it. As we keep on measuring it, and all the organization gonna change, and people will think that's the norm, and that's how we can collectively together make sure that we create a better environment for our daughters and for our nieces in the future.
So, sorry, Samir. So one of the things, and Diane, the start of your comment reminded me of this, is Women Who Code has this theme called Applaud Her, and that's getting people to talk about their career successes, because it's a little more difficult for women to talk about it, and it's a little bit more difficult for society to hear women talk about their career successes. And I realized how important that was when I was speaking to a director of engineering, and she said to me, oh, Elena, you're right. I'm actually senior director of engineering, and I've been embarrassed to update my LinkedIn profile, and my jaw just dropped, because if something that big at that level was reluctant to share out something that significant, we are holding ourselves back constantly. So I encourage everyone in the audience to think, is there a promotion you got? Did you launch a new product? Did you help out a colleague? Did you have some career success? Give a talk, something that you'd be willing to drop in the chat, because creating a cultural standard that it's okay and actually important for women to be sharing out their successes, and advocating for themselves and in their careers, and making it acceptable for us to do that is actually, I think, critical cultural change that needs to take place.
It's not just okay, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Let's celebrate them, and
Yeah.
celebrate each and every one.
Yeah.
We have to make sure it's okay that to celebrate, and then everyone else will help you to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yes. And I just want to piggyback off of both of you, because celebrating your successes is something that we want to push home in the world of HR. Celebrate yourself. That's what your yearly reviews are for, calling it out to your managers, your supervisors, whoever. It is a big deal. And I think just really celebrating yourself throughout every stage, no matter big, small, little, write down your wins. A takeaway that I had from a conference that I attended a few weeks ago was, monthly, put a calendar reminder and just write down, what did you do that month? What were your wins from that month, so that you can be celebrated. And I do want to call out Karen, you in the chat, she said salary transparency, which I found so profound, because, we are so hesitant to talk about how much money we make. And funny enough, the other day I was with one of my closest friends, and my close friend, like a best friend, and she blatantly asked me, how much money do you make a year? And it took me aback, because I was like, wait, what? Typically we don't want to share that information, but she's starting out in the HR world. So I was like, although I was taken aback, I wanted to share that with her, because I need her to understand, once you get certain qualifications and experience, this is what you're worth. Know your worth, understand that. So yes, salary transparency is a big deal, because everyone needs to know what they're worth and what their skill set is worth, and you should be paid what you're worth.
That's I love that. So we did get a question from the audience, and we've got a lot of change makers in the audience, a lot of really powerful people who are building and shaping technology for companies all over the world. What are some of the ways that we or that they can encourage leaders to develop practices and policies that are going to be more inclusive for everyone?
I'm a big believer of what gets measured gets done. We have to measure, and then we have to, basically make those numbers public, right? The moment you put the number together, the number will just speak for yourself. So I think that's, if there's one thing that, I would advocate that has to get done, is we have to start to measure and then start to publicize the information. And then I would hope all the media using their power to help promote that number. And then, everybody will see it. Then there will be improvement.
That's awesome. There's some boldness that comes with that too, and a leadership team that's willing to do that. And I love to see there's a few of these sort of rebellious organizations that are causing that to happen. 600 and Rising is a great example of the advertising agency stepping into a space, asking for these large media conglomerates to start posting stats or inclusion stats. And then you see campaigns like Paid Leave US who go and build giant coalitions going after retailers to try to incite change around parental leave policies. And so certainly there is this like underground or this like community building effort that can happen. And also in some ways it starts from within, right? You need a leadership team who is dedicated to change. And then, I'm slightly biased because I sit in a consulting capacity, but there are lots of experts can bring in to help go through a process, because if you were already good at it, you would probably already be doing it. And so oftentimes you need to bring in, or at least talk to or tap the people on your team who are experts in inclusion, that because there's often a lot of internal work that needs to happen to look at the systems, the policies, the practices that are already in your space, because you may not be hearing from the folks in your team who don't feel safe. And until that safety is sort of identified, then it's hard to build policies out of it. That's the hard thing. At my company, we hired 3 diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants to come in and look at our processes start to finish. What did our job descriptions look like? What did our hiring panels look like? What did our compensation look like? What did our leadership composition look like? What are we publishing in the world? All of that was hard. But it was the work that we needed to do in order for us to advocate up to our clients. So for us, that's been a really useful experience to go through.
It's just accountability and really understanding like where we stand, the community continuing to do what we do. And of course, Women Who Code, we stay in this space and continue to move us forward.
So we have just a final sign-off question. I thank you so much for being here, for sharing out this expertise today. Can you leave the audience with what is your one quick pro tip that you recommend that has kind of helped you on your path in your career, something that they might be able to replicate?
I'll go first. Don't be afraid to speak up. So that's my pro tip. You have to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. And if you have to bounce it off a best friend or bounce it off a mentor, get it out, go to your boss. Do not be afraid to speak up for yourself. You have to advocate for you. So
I would say build alliances. Like surround yourself with the people who are going to lift you up and help you achieve the thing that you most want to do. That may sound obvious, but it actually requires a lot of intention and outreach. And so I would encourage, just as Samaria mentioned, like, really being bold in who you surround yourself with.
So basically joining Women Who Code.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm saying.
Never take no as the answer, and break the stereotype. Don't let it box you. Break the box. You will see your own potential. Believe in that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to welcome Shauna back onto the stage just to close out the conference. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself. Be sure to make connections, and I look forward to seeing everyone at the next Women Who Code conference.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Really loved hearing all of your input on your panel.